I'm not sure what you call this kind of watch. I mean, one with different hands on their own pinions. I'm also not sure why I bought a watch with different hands on different pinions. Now, I'm all for creativity on the dial, but not when you take a tried and tested and most suitable arrangement of the hands and make your new design more difficult to read. So it seems that creativity here is to make the main function and purpose of a watch and make it much less effective, all at the cost of being different. Tevise needs to understand that difference does not naturally mean better. Anyway, let's have a look at this watch. Good day to you all and welcome back to another BBW review. Today we have a Tevise automatic. I have no idea of its designation as there are no details anywhere on the watch and its presence on the internet is almost a secret. So I'm just going to refer to it as the watch. The watch has a 43mm dial and a lug-to-lug of 50mm. The lug width is a suitable 20mm because it's such a big watch, and an unacceptable height of 16.5mm from base to the domed crystal on top. And this immediately makes it a top-heavy watch, and so one where the perfect fit of the strap is very important. All this because including the stainless steel strap weighs in at 148 grams, so quite a big boy. So onto the case. At just under $10, the case is obviously going to be chrome-plated alloy. The lugs do curve down slightly on what I think is a really bland case design. The standard push-pull crown is slightly out of proportion, although it is signed. Anyway, very much out of proportion with the rest of the watch. It's too small considering the watch that it's on. The crown placement itself is one of the worst I've used. Pulling the crown out to change the time could easily break a thumbnail, and moving the hand around the dial is a bit reassuringly stiff. Now, I like a nice stiff hand movement, but this is a bit too much and feels that it may break. All in all, this doesn't help considering the crown is too small. So you have a really stiff hand movement on a really small crown. The case steps up to a separate angled bezel and onto a domed mineral glass crystal, which does actually have some nice distortion. Looking at the watch in profile, it desperately needs a couple of millimeters shaved off the exhibition case and the same removed from the top, because at 16.5 millimeters is just going to negatively affect the balance of the watch on your wrist and in turn how you wear it. So everything hangs on the precision of sizing this bracelet. If it's too loose, it's going to wobble everywhere on your wrist. If it's too tight, it's going to be uncomfortable because it is a heavy watch. So it has to be as close to perfect as possible. And it is not. Now let's look at the real negatives of this watch, which are the dial. I can't think of anything positive at all to say about this dial. The main problems are the hands, the position of the hands. So you have the hour, very small hour, on the top pinion. The minute size is okay on the central pinion. And the lack of any suitable minute and hour markers for accuracy. So when this watch is on your wrist, it's quite difficult to actually say what the time is. As you see on the chapter ring, you have very small indents in white, which are meant to represent the minute markers. They're all the same, so it's very difficult to differentiate which minute is which minute. The hour, now as you see from the hour subdial, which is indented, you have a 12, 3, a 6 and a 9. But once this is on your wrist, especially if you're outside, you're not going to be able to see those numbers. But without doubt, the worst offender regarding the dial is this. The representation of gears at the 6 o'clock position. It's ugly, it's tacky, it's completely unnecessary, and does nothing but cheapen the watch as a whole. In fact, the main features of the dial are so diverse and unrelated, it looks like 4 designers all waited for their own chance to put their own little touch onto this dial, without considering compatibility at all. I've never seen an addition as bad as this on any other automatic watch, and one which is really difficult to read. So at the 9 position, there is an indent of a half, I guess you'd call it a half hexagon, in which an Explorer style 9 sits. And that's okay. They should have continued this to the 12, a 3 and a 6, but they didn't. That would have been too logical. Now, let me move those hands out of the way, avoiding breaking my nails. Now, if you take a quick look, now we're looking at symmetry. If you look at the 9 and go across to the 3 o'clock position, where we have the logo and the Tevise name, you can see that it's out of balance. The logo and the name are higher on the dial than the 9. And that is really obvious. But who cares about symmetry? Clearly, Tevise doesn't. The dial face itself is a matte blue, with again small minute markers running around the chapter ring. To continue talking about the dial, I need to move first onto the handset. First, silver on blue is not as legible as it should be. I personally would have gone for white. Now, especially when you're outside in the sun, it is really difficult to locate the position of these hands amongst a darker matte dial. At the 12 o'clock position, there is an indented subdial with numbers 12, 3, 6 and 9, as I've mentioned, and they're all too small to see, and battens at the other hour positions. This is the hour hand. It's much too small and it's too silver. The central pinion holds the long stick minute hand, and that's it. Until by accident, hidden in that mess of whatever you'd call that, there is a second hand, and I didn't notice it until quite recently. There you go. A bit juttery. But it's almost camouflaged and hidden within this mess here. So I don't know why they bothered. The indented subdial holding the second hand is circled in 60 tiny markers. Again, why bother? So the domed crystal is the only decent part, as it has some nice distortion. So out of the 4 main components, the number, the subdial hour, the logo and name, and the minute hand leading into the second hand and this awful gear apparatus, there is nothing nice at all. And everything is just kind of thrown together without any thought of continuity. Absolutely terrible. Now let's flip this over and have a look at the back. The back of the watch has a mineral glass exhibition case with a modified Tongji movement inside, banging out 21,600 beats per hour with a power reserve of apparently 36 hours. And it does actually keep quite good time. The bidirectional rotor has a basic pattern on, and it moves quite freely and has a 17 joule movement. The cover is stainless steel, but there is no mention or sign of water resistance, so we can just assume it's 30 meters standard. Now, onto one of the most important factors, which I think was just an oversight from Tevise, and that is the stainless steel strap, which is going to be vital for keeping balance of this watch on your wrist. So at 148 grams, the head of the watch itself, I'd guess, is about 70% of the weight, so it's going to be top heavy. This stainless steel bracelet has individual links. I'm not sure if they're solid or rolled. They have push pins, hollow end links, and a very basic press clasp, which often doesn't align when closing. No, it's not aligned at all. You have to kind of wiggle it into position, moving it back and forwards. It's still... And... okay. You have the safety lock, which again, it doesn't really feel that good or reassuring, and a double push button release there. The bracelet itself looks like 3 links, but they're not. You would assume this is going to be 2 outer, which are brushed, and 1 inner polished, but they're not. This is just 1 link, so you have 1, 2, 3 parts all joined together. It's not bad, I guess. There are no rough edges on the bracelet, and the look of the 2 brushed outer links with polished edges, it does look okay, but it does feel quite cheap. As I mentioned, the clasp is a 2-button release, and for a watch like this, let's have a look at that micro release, that micro adjustment. You have 1, 2, 3 micro adjustments on a very small clasp. Now, some say 3 is about standard and should be enough, but it definitely isn't. Obviously, if you have 4 or 5, you're going to tune your watch in to a much better fit. Now, I've got mine on the last one, and it's still a bit too loose. So I could have done with 1 or 2 more. And as I've mentioned, this is vital in making sure your watch sits comfortably and balanced on your wrist. So this is the kind of make or break to how your watch feels when you're wearing it. And this fails. Clasp too small, it's very shoddily made, and fails the wearing of the watch completely. So let's have a look at this on the wrist. And here it is in all its glory. Onto the profile. Now this is where it starts to get ugly. 50 millimeters, I can pull off a 50 millimeter lug length quite okay. The problem with this is the lugs are lifted so high up because the exhibition case has got so much depth to it, it doesn't meet the wrist at all. So you're going to get these awful gaps. And moving on up, it just looks like a brick. It's, again, they should have shaved about 2 millimeters off the top and the bottom, and even then, that would have still been quite big. So, overhang. It kind of doesn't overhang, it just hovers above. And because there is not a perfect fit with the micro adjustments, it's going to wobble all around as you're wearing it throughout the day. It will start hanging to one side like this, and that's really uncomfortable. So you spend all day just adjusting it or centering it, and you shouldn't be doing that. Now, one idea you could be, okay, get a new strap, which and then pull the watch down as like this. So that does look better. And now released, and it kind of hovers above the wrist. Absolutely awful. That doesn't look too bad. But with a badly designed strap that's too loose, you get that. Look at that once more. Plush to the wrist, and not plush. I didn't think I'd be so scathing in this review, but the more I looked at this watch, the more problems and defects that I found. So to sum up, this watch is too top heavy, too thick, has no balance, and has been designed by a bunch of children. Even though you get a fairly decent movement and it's under $10, I do not recommend this at all. For me, it will never see the light of day and will just remain in my watch case as an oddity. If it were up to me, I would put the 9, actually let me show you what I would do. Now this is what I think Tevise should have done. The Rolex Explorer style numbers I quite like, so they should have put the 9, 12, 3 and 6. They should have removed the independent hour hand and fixed it to the central pinion, so you have your standard hour and minute hands, and then color match them so it gives a more vibrant or obvious difference between the matte blue. So I would have done this in white hands against a darker dial. Then the Tevise logo and the text of the name, which is okay, push that to below the 12. This gear decal, completely remove it. Now the second hand, you could have put a small second hand sub dial there, that would be okay. Or just remove the second hand to the central pinion. And I think that would have been much, much better. Oh, and let's shave 4mm off the fat from this watch. But Tevise have children designing their watches, it seems, and this is what you get. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again with another watch on the green chair. Until then, take it easy.